Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a simple labeling activity. Specifically, I'll create an activity that asks students to label the characters in a Garfield comic strip. What you need to do first is to curate all the images you intend to use. And for this activity, all I need is an image of the comic strip. H5P allows you to create text in the software, which I can use to match with the drop zones I place on the image. Next, I'll navigate through Moodle to show you how to access and begin creating the H5P activity. You click on Add an Activity or Resource, scroll down and choose H5P Content, and click Add. This brings us to the next page. There's a small text box at the top of the page where you can include instructions to your students. I've already inserted some text right here. You can also enter a title for your activity right here. Below that, I've already uploaded a background image and the dimensions are automatically set. Here's the image, here are the dimensions. Click on the Task tab at the top of the workspace, right here. This will bring you to your activity's canvas. It'll immediately show you how your background image looks in the dimensions you've chosen. If it seems improperly sized, head back to the Setup tab and adjust it, like so. So head back to the Task tab. Next, I'm going to add a text that the students will need to place on the image. Notice how I name my pieces as well. So click here. I will add the name Odie and click Done. And it appears in the center of the image. I will resize it and I will choose to place Odie above Odie's head. The reason why I asked you to notice what I name my pieces is because these are the names I like to use for the drop zones too, so I know which they'll match with. We'll figure this out at the end. With the pieces set, I like to move them around where I think they should go. This lets me see how the end of the puzzle is going to look. Now, I might want to adjust the placing of the pieces to make sure they don't cover certain parts of my background image. And now, with the pieces set where I think they should go, I apply my drop zones. It's going to ask you to name them immediately, so knowing what your pieces are called is very useful. And to place a drop zone, click this button right here. I will first add the Garfield drop zone and click Done. You'll notice that the drop zone is opaque and hides your background. So this is it right here. It always ends up spawning in the middle of your image. To fix this, double click on the drop zone again and set the background opacity to 0 and click Done. And voila, now the drop zone is transparent. I'm going to move it over the name Garfield and resize it so it fits perfectly. And voila, this is your puzzle. But we're not done yet. You need to place the pieces you've set somewhere along the edges of the image, as this is where they'll appear when students first access the activity. Next, you need to tell H5P where we think the pieces could be placed and designate which drop zones are the correct spots for the pieces. Sometimes you'll have to move things around to access things because there is a kind of overlapping feature. Now, because the word Garfield was behind the drop zone, I have to move the drop zone, click Garfield, and put it next to the other texts at the top of my comic strip. And then I move the drop zone back. Upon clicking on the name Garfield, I can select which drop zones it can fit in. So I have drop zones designated for Odie, John, and Garfield, and I want Garfield to be able to be placed in each one. And click Done. Next, I click on the drop zone above Garfield's head. And now I have to choose the correct element. And so the one that fits here is the Garfield text. Once that's done, I click Done. There are other options to choose that will give your drop zones and pieces different properties, like you can create infinite copies of pieces if they're to be used more than once, and you can fit more than one piece in a drop zone. If you're having difficulty adjusting the size of your drop zones or pieces, you can adjust their width and length in pixels by clicking the item, and clicking on the four-pronged arrow right here called transform. And here you can adjust position and size according to pixels. The last thing we need to do is look at the behavioral settings at the bottom, and there are a few things to consider. Here are the behavioral settings. If you click, it opens a tab. You can enable retry so your students can redo the activity. The next box determines when students can view the solution, as in after attempting it. You can also not give any points for every drop zone. You can give 1 point for the entire activity, and it'll tell students which pieces are wrong or right. You can apply penalties if students match a wrong piece. You can provide an explanation too, but I haven't used this much. You can adjust the transparency of the pieces as the students move them. This is pretty good if the pieces are big and you want the students to still see the background as they move the pieces. Good for labeling exercises. You can highlight the drop zone as the pieces are being moved. You can set each drop zone as or with auto align. You can also set how close each piece is set to align in the drop zone, but that I haven't used as much. You can allow students to use full screen, and if you didn't choose to give 1 point for the entire activity, you can provide a score for each piece students need to move. And finally, you can choose to show the title of the activity as the students are actually completing it. And that's it. The last thing we need to do is test out our activity by scrolling down and clicking Save and Display. I hope this short tutorial was of some use to you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out via MIO or Teams. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Or, when you're ready, show me what you've made. I'd really enjoy seeing your designs. Cheers.